On this episode of China Uncensored, Mars ain't the kind of place to raise your kids unless the Earth is destroyed by nuclear war. Xi Jinping might be getting his name written into the Chinese Constitution. And an American university that crossed the Chinese Communist Party just got schooled. This is China Uncensored. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. The Chinese Communist Party has had a lot to freak out over this week. Most of it revolves around this man, Kim Rocket Man Jong-un. Yes, Kim's been burning out his fuse up here alone, with his insistent push to turn North Korea into a nuclear power. Now sure, all this science, he don't understand. It's just his job 5 days a week, because he's a rocket man. That is, of course, what U.S. President Donald Trump called him at a meeting of the UN Security Council.
Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself.
Now, I know there were mixed reactions to Trump's speech, and I understand. On one hand, President Trump quoted Elton John at the United Nations. That's gotta be worth something. But on the other hand, everyone knows that Space Oddity is the far superior Man Lost Wandering the Far Reaches of Space song. So that's disappointing. But calling Kim Jong-un Rocket Man does make Trump's threats to destroy North Korea sound more folksy. And you know who definitely liked Trump's speech? Japan.
We also highly regard President Trump's stance of announcing all options on the table, and we would like to continue our cooperation in security matters between Japan and the US, as well as among Japan, the US, and South Korea.
Yes, Japan would absolutely love to continue its cooperation in security matters. And you know what would really help them do that? A strong military. Last week, North Korea launched a missile right over Japan. And that's reignited a debate about whether or not Japan should have a more aggressive military. Japan was banned from having a military for any purpose besides self-defense after its defeat in World War II, or as it's known in China, the war to resist Japanese aggression. And the Chinese regime absolutely does not want Japan becoming a military rival in the Asia-Pacific region again. And as much as China would like to think it'll be a long, long time before Japan can do that, Rocket Man is giving them a pretty good reason to do it. That's why, according to the White House, just before his big Rocket Man speech, President Trump and Chinese leader Xi Jinping committed to maximizing pressure on North Korea through vigorous enforcement of United Nations Security Council resolutions. That was the fourth phone call between the leaders of the US and China. And honestly, Trump's been in office for 9 months now, and only 4 phone calls? Would it kill Xi Jinping to call a little more often and just let Trump know he's okay? He worries. But while the Chinese regime is quick to say threats won't help the North Korean situation, just in case, China and Russia are holding military drills in the waters near the Russia-North Korea border. Unfortunately, Xi Jinping missed President Trump's UN debut. That's most likely because he's preparing for the 19th Party Congress next month. It's a big event where more than half of China's communist leadership is getting a big shakeup. It's also particularly important this year because, according to state-run media, they're going to amend the Constitution. The Communist Party's Constitution, that is. While the article doesn't say exactly what it will be amended to say, it will probably be related to something Xi Jinping said. His predecessors, Woody McWoodface and Toady McToadface, also had their policies written into the party's constitution. You know, the famous scientific development and the 3 represents. Yes, they all have catchy nicknames like that. Can't wait to see what Xi Jinping comes up with. What's that, Shelley? The 4 comprehensives. What is that even? Never mind. In other news, the Chinese regime and India are still repairing ties a month after wrapping up a tense border conflict. But China may have found a way to solve its troubles with India. Permanently. Let the country drown. This is the Bhama Putra River. It's one of Asia's major rivers. It starts in Chinese Tibet and flows down through India and Bangladesh before emptying out into the Ganges River. It also often floods during the monsoon season. That's a major problem in northern India and Bangladesh. That's why these countries have an agreement with China. China, being upstream, shares information with India and Bangladesh so they can prepare if it looks like a flood is going to happen. But gosh, this year, China didn't share that information with India. Beijing has said its hydrological stations are being upgraded, which means it cannot share data. Shoot. Except the BBC found that somehow China did manage to share the data with Bangladesh. Funny that. But just in case flooding does happen in India, the Chinese regime will be ready to help. They're building a highway in Tibet to Nepal that will give the Chinese military easy access to South Asia in case they need to send troops into India. You know, to help with flood relief, of course. Speaking of a disaster, a Chinese-born New Zealand member of parliament is under fire. He's accused of being trained by Chinese spies. A joint investigation between New Zealand's newsroom and the Financial Times found Jong-un had studied at an elite Chinese spy school, was likely an officer in Chinese military intelligence, and of course, a member of the Communist Party. Now, while that may sound bad, Jong-un has a pretty good defense. No, he is not a Chinese spy. He just taught English to Chinese spies. Well, I guess case closed. And over in Hong Kong, it's a hotbed of political unrest. Many people there feel the Communist Party is rapidly encroaching on the rights and freedoms they've had for decades. Pro-democracy activists have been imprisoned. Mainland Chinese police plan to patrol a Hong Kong train station. And democratically elected leaders have been kicked out of office. But Beijing-backed Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam has a plan to soothe those worries by telling everyone to stop that independence talk because it's making Beijing mad. Well, if Beijing is getting mad, of course, keep quiet about all the problems you're facing and surely they will all magically go away. But if you don't do what Beijing wants, there could be consequences. And that's what one U.S. university is learning. In June, the University of California, San Diego disregarded the demands of the Chinese embassy and allowed their commencement speech to be given by a known terrorist, a wolf in monk's robes, the Dalai Lama. Imagine that. The Chinese international students had begged the university to cancel the Dalai Lama's speech or stop him from talking about political topics like Tibet. Well, now the Chinese regime is showing American universities that if they do something the Communist Party doesn't like, there will be consequences. The Chinese government has now apparently barred Chinese scholars from getting state funding to attend Ucsd. Although Chinese students make up around 10% of UCSD's student body, it's not clear how many receive scholarships from the Chinese government. Hopefully at least some Chinese students will still be able to enjoy fish tacos in Legoland. What do you think? Thanks for watching this episode of China Uncensored. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time. Like this episode? You know you could have seen it earlier, along with other great segments, if you had visited our website, ChinaUncensored.tv. Check it out.